The silence of the forest is unnatural. There are no birds singing, no squirrels running through the frozen branches, only the crunch of snow under worn leather boots, and the vaporous breath of a man walking toward his own doom without knowing it. It is the 19th day of the winter solstice in the year 1643 in the depths of Telemark, Norway, and the woodcutter Bjorn Halvorsen has just found something that should unexist, a perfect clearing in the middle of the pine forest, where the snow forms an immaculate circle, and in the center, driven into the frozen earth, there is a wooden staff carved with runes that no one in his village has seen in 3 generations. But what truly stops his heart is not the staff, it's the footprint. A single bare footprint, delicate, feminine, surrounded by the unmistakable mark of a tail dragging behind. And as Bjorn watches with a dry mouth and racing pulse, he hears behind him a voice that sounds like honey poured over broken glass. "You've come to pay me what you owe, haven't you?" He turns slowly, with every muscle in his body screaming at him to flee, but his legs don't obey. Before him, emerging from among the frost-covered firs, walks a woman of impossible beauty. Her hair is long, golden like wheat under the summer sun, and falls in wild waves over her bare shoulders despite the deadly cold that freezes breath in the air. Her eyes are the deep blue of the fjords in full winter, and her skin glows with a pale radiance that seems to emanate its own light. She wears a dress woven with moss and lichen, so tight to her body that Bjorn can see every curve, every hypnotic movement of her hips as she approaches. But then, as she takes another step, he sees it. Behind her, swaying with obscene grace, emerges a cow's tail, covered in brown hair and swinging from side to side. Bjorn feels his bladder threaten to empty. He knows the stories. Everyone in Telemark knows the stories. This is the HULDRA. And if she's here, if she's called him by name without him giving it, then someone in his family made a pact that must now be fulfilled. "My great-grandfather," Bjorn whispers, his voice broken. "He promised you something, didn't he?" The HULDRA smiles, and her smile is beautiful and terrible at once, like watching the sunrise over a battlefield where the dead lie. "Your great-grandfather, Halvard the Wise, came to me in the hunger winter of 1580. His village was dying. Children cried with swollen and empty bellies. Mothers had no milk. The elderly let themselves fall in the snow so as not to be a burden. And he, desperate, entered my forest with an offering, his blood, his pain, and a promise." She stops barely 2 steps from Bjorn, so close that he can smell her scent-wet earth, moss, and something sweet that reminds him of rotting flesh. "I gave him 3 fat deer every week throughout that entire winter. I saved your village, and in exchange he promised me that every 3 generations his lineage would deliver what I love most in this world, a child, not just any child, one who hasn't yet completed their 7th winter, one whose innocence feeds the earth, whose blood renews the pact, whose soul becomes part of the forest forever." Bjorn retreats, stumbling, but his feet sink in the snow and he almost falls. "No, that's madness. I'm not going to give you any child." The HULDRA's eyes darken, changing from sky blue to a storm gray that seems to contain centuries of anger. "You have no choice, Bjorn Halvorsen. The pact was sealed with blood and oath. If you don't deliver what is mine before this solstice ends, I will take every child under 7 years old in your village, all of them, and I will make them part of my forest, but not with the peace I offer now. I will do it with pain, with terror, with the agony that only hungry spirits know." Her voice rises, resonating among the trees like the howl of 1,000 wolves. "You will choose, or I will choose. You have until the longest night of the year. 5 days, Bjorn. 5 days to decide which child of your blood will belong to me." Before he can respond, before he can even scream, the HULDRA disappears. She doesn't walk backward, doesn't slowly fade. She simply stops being there, as if she never existed except for one thing. In the snow where she stood, there is a stain of fresh blood steaming in the icy air, forming a symbol that Bjorn recognizes from the old stories. It's the mark of sacrifice, the mark of debt, and now it's imprinted on his destiny like a red-hot iron on living flesh. Bjorn runs. He runs like he's never run in his life, with branches scratching his face and the frozen air burning his lungs. He runs until he sees the first cabins of his village skiergård, where smoke rises lazily from the chimneys, and where his 2 children, Magnus, 6 years old, and little Astrid, only 4, play in the snow in front of his house, completely unaware that one of them has only 5 days of life remaining. But how can a father choose which of his children must die? And what secrets does his great-grandfather's pact really hide? Because as Bjorn crosses the threshold of his home with terror etched in his eyes, he doesn't know that the HULDRA has lied to him. Not about the pact that's real, but about something much darker, something that, if he discovered it, would change everything he believes he knows about his family, his village, and why the forest really demands its tribute of innocent blood every 3 generations. From what city are you watching this tale of the oldest and most forgotten Nordic horror? Leave it in the comments, because every time someone shares where they're from, the stories on the Vikingos del Horror channel grow and more ancestral legends emerge from the darkness to be told. If you're not subscribed yet, do it now, because what's coming is only the beginning of a truth that will chill you to the bone. The village of Skiergård is a place where everyone knows everyone, where families have lived for generations, and where secrets are buried deep beneath the snow and silence. That night Bjorn doesn't sleep. He sits by the fire with his wife Ingrid, a woman with a severe face and rough hands from years of hard work, and tells her what he saw in the forest. She doesn't laugh, she doesn't tell him he's crazy. Instead, her face turns pale as ash, and her lips tremble. "I knew it," Ingrid whispers, with eyes bright with unshed tears. "I knew this would come. My grandmother told me when I was a child. She said that every 3 generations, the forest collected its price. I thought they were just stories to scare children and keep them away from the trees during winter. But it wasn't, was it?" Bjorn shakes his head, his hands trembling as he holds a cup of warm beer he hasn't tasted. "We have 5 days. 5 days to decide which of our children we're going to kill. We're not going to kill either one." Ingrid stands up abruptly, fists clenched. "We'll run. We'll take Magnus and Astrid and leave tonight. We'll go south, to Bergen, where the forest can't reach us, and condemn all the other children in the village." Bjorn's voice is barely a broken whisper. "She said if I don't choose, she'll take all children under 7 years old. There are 12 in Skiergård, Ingrid. 12 innocents who would die because of our cowardice." The silence that follows is heavy, oppressive, as if the walls of the cabin themselves are listening. Outside, the wind howls through the pines, and Bjorn swears he can hear, very faintly, a feminine laugh mixed with the sound. The next morning Bjorn seeks out the oldest man in the village, Einar, the elder, a man of almost 90 years whose mind is still sharp as a blade and whose eyes have seen things most would prefer to forget. Einar lives in a small cabin at the edge of Skiergård where animal skulls hang and where the smell of dried herbs and wood smoke fills the air. "So she has returned," says Einar without looking up from the wood carving he's making. His gnarled hands work with surprising precision, shaping what appears to be a female figure with a tail. "The HULDRA knew this winter would be the time. The signs have been there. Crows flying in circles over the forest, the way wolves howl but never approach the village, the nightmares that have been tormenting the children for weeks. Do you know how to stop her?" asks Bjorn, desperate. Einar finally looks up, and in his eyes there is a deep, ancient sadness. "You cannot stop a blood pact, Bjorn. You can only fulfill it. But perhaps ... perhaps you can understand why it exists." He stands with difficulty and heads to a wooden chest carved with runic symbols. From it he takes out a yellowed parchment, so fragile it seems it will disintegrate at the touch. "This was written by your great-grandfather Halvard 2 days before he died. He kept it hidden for years, but gave it to me on his deathbed and made me swear to guard it until this moment arrived." Bjorn takes the parchment with trembling hands and begins to read. The handwriting is old, shaky, but the words are clear. "To whoever reads this, I am Halvard Helveson, and I have committed the greatest sin a man can commit. In the hunger winter when my people were dying and the gods seemed to have abandoned us, I sought the HULDRA in a forest. But it wasn't just for food, it was for power. She offered me a deal. In exchange for 1 child every 3 generations, my lineage would never know poverty, would never suffer from disease, and would always have the forest's protection. I accepted. I accepted because I was greedy, because I wanted my name to endure, because I believed I could outsmart her when the time came to pay. But the forest doesn't forget. The HULDRA doesn't forgive. And now, as I write this with my last breaths, I know I have condemned my descendants to carry this curse. If you're reading this, then your moment has arrived, and I will tell you what I discovered too late. The HULDRA doesn't want the child to harm them. She wants them to save them, because every child she takes becomes part of the forest, protected forever from the cruelties of the human world, living in an eternal dream where there is no pain, no fear, no death. It's a blessing disguised as a curse, but still, it's a choice no parent should make. May the gods have mercy on your soul, because I have found none for mine." Bjorn drops the parchment as if it burns. A blessing, he calls this a blessing. He's asking them to give their child to a monster. "The HULDRA is not a monster," says Einar quietly. "She is something much older, something that existed before humans built their villages, before Christian missionaries arrived, before we forgot how to speak with the earth itself. She is the guardian of the forest, the mother of the wild, the protector of that which the modern world is destroying. And yes, she demands a price, but that price comes with something few understand, an eternity away from human suffering." "I don't care," says Bjorn, his voice trembling with rage and desperation. "I'm not going to give up Magnus or Astrid. I'll find another way." "There is no other way," responds Einar, "but there is something you should know. Something your great-grandfather didn't write in that parchment because he was too afraid." He approaches Bjorn and lowers his voice to a whisper. "The child you choose doesn't have to be yours." Bjorn freezes. "What do you mean?" "The pact says a child of your lineage." "But lineage doesn't just flow downward, Bjorn. It also flows sideways. You have a brother, don't you, Torsten, who lives in the cabin by the mill. He has 3 children, and they're all of your blood." The implication hits Bjorn like a hammer to the chest. He could save his own children by giving up his brother's child. He could live with that guilt, right? He could look Torsten in the eyes knowing he saved Magnus and Astrid by sacrificing his nephew or niece. The thought is poison, but it's tempting poison, and Bjorn feels it creeping through his mind like a hungry serpent. "No," he says finally. but his voice lacks conviction. I won't do that. Einar only nods, but in his eyes there is something that seems to say, you've already considered it. You've already crossed that line in your mind, and the HULDRA knows it. That night Björn can't look at his children without feeling a crushing weight in his chest. Magnus, at 6 years old, is carving a small wooden boat by the fire, tongue sticking out between his lips as he concentrates. Astrid, only 4, is curled up in Ingrid's lap, listening to a story about the old gods that her mother tells in a soft voice. They're perfect, they're innocent, and one of them is doomed unless Björn does the unthinkable. But then, in the middle of the night, when everyone is asleep, Björn hears a soft knock on the door. He rises cautiously, taking his axe, and opens slowly. There's no one there. Only the snow falling softly under the moonlight. But on the threshold, left like a macabre offering, there is a small wooden doll carved in the shape of a child, and around its neck there is a red thread knotted 3 times. Björn picks it up with trembling hands and sees that on the doll's back there is a name engraved in small, precise letters. Astrid. His heart stops. The HULDRA has chosen. If Björn doesn't make a decision, she will take his youngest daughter, the girl with bright eyes and laughter like bells, the girl who still believes the world is a magical and good place. No. Björn throws the doll into the fire, but it doesn't burn. The flames surround it, lick it, but the wood doesn't blacken or consume. Instead, the doll seems to glow, pulsing with a blood-red light that beats like a heart. Ingrid wakes to her husband's scream and runs to him. What's wrong? What is that? She's chosen Astrid, Björn whispers, tears running down his bearded face. If we don't do something, she'll take our little girl. Ingrid takes the doll from the fire with her own hands, not caring about the heat, and holds it against her chest as if it were her own daughter. Then we'll fight. We'll go to the church, seek the priest, have him bless our family. The power of Christ is greater than any pagan spirit, right? But Björn knows, deep in his soul, that the HULDRA is older than Christ, older than any god humans have named, and he knows a blessing won't be enough. The next day, Björn goes to the wooden church that stands in the center of Father Krasdion, a thin man with sunken eyes and ink-stained hands, listens to his story with an expression that oscillates between disbelief and horror. Brother Björn, says the priest, when Björn finishes, what you describe is the devil's work. These forest spirits, these HULDRAs, are nothing more than demons disguised as beauty to deceive pious men and lead them to perdition. Then help me, Björn begs, bless my family. Protect my children with the power of your God. Father Krasdion hesitates. There's something in his eyes, a shadow of fear he can't completely hide. I'll do what I can, but you must understand that these ancient pacts, made with blood and oath, are difficult to break even with the strongest faith. The church has fought for centuries against the old customs, but in places like this, in the depths of the north where the forest is ancient and the stones remember the times before Christ, the power of the ancient is still strong. That afternoon, Father Krasdion comes to Björn's house with holy water, a silver cross, and a prayer book so old the pages are yellowed and brittle. He sprinkles water throughout the cabin, in every corner, in every window. He draws crosses on Magnus and Astrid's foreheads while reciting prayers in Latin that none of them understand. And finally, he places the silver cross on the door, driving it deep into the wood. This will protect you, he says, but his voice doesn't sound convinced. Keep the doors closed. Don't let the children out after nightfall and pray. Pray like you've never prayed before. But that night, when darkness falls and the moon rises full and bright over the forest, something changes. The wind stops blowing, the wolves stop howling, and in the unnatural silence that follows, Björn hears footsteps outside his cabin. Soft footsteps, barefoot on the snow, accompanied by the dragging of something heavy, a tail. The HULDRA's voice floats through the closed door, sweet and poisonous. Do you think your new gods can protect you from me, Björn? Do you think a little water and some words in a dead language can break a pact sealed with your great-grandfather's blood? How naive you are. How deliciously human. Björn stands axe in hand and positions himself between the door and where his children sleep. You won't take them. You'll have to go through my dead body first. The HULDRA laughs, and it's the most beautiful and terrible sound Björn has ever heard. If that's what you wish, I can arrange it. But think carefully. If you die, who will protect your children then? Your wife. She's strong, true, but not strong enough to face me. The priest, he's already afraid. I can smell it in his sweat. I can see it in the way he trembled while nailing that useless cross to your door. What do you want from us? Björn shouts, his voice broken. You already know what I want. A child, your girl, specifically Astrid of the sky eyes and pure heart. She'll be perfect for the forest. She grow among my trees, play with the stream spirits, dance under the moonlight with creatures humans have forgotten. She'll never know hunger or disease or the pain of the cruel world you call civilization. I'm offering her paradise, Björn. Why do you resist? Because you're asking me to give up my daughter. Because I'm her father and my duty is to protect her. Protect her. The HULDRA's voice becomes harder, colder. Protect her from what? From a life of hard work until her hands are destroyed like your wife's. From bearing children who will probably die before they're 5 years old. from aging until her beauty withers and she becomes another bitter old woman waiting for death. That's what awaits her if she stays with you. But with me, she'll be eternal. She'll be free, she'll be happy in ways you can't even imagine. The words hit Björn like punches, because there's truth in them. He's seen enough children die from fevers, from hunger, from stupid accidents. He's seen enough women age before their time, with bent backs and broken spirits. Is what the HULDRA is offering really so terrible? But then he hears Astrid moving in her bed, murmuring something in her dreams, and the spell breaks. No matter how hard life is, it's his daughter's life to live. It's not his to give away. My answer is no, Björn says, his voice firm now. Find someone else. Look for someone else. But you won't touch my children. The silence that follows is long, heavy. And then, the HULDRA speaks one last time, with a voice so cold that Björn feels frost forming on the windows. Very well, then I will choose. But it won't be just Astrid, it will be all of them. Every child in this village under 7 years old will be mine before the solstice ends. And when you're standing in a village full of weeping parents, when you see Torsten holding his son's lifeless body, when you hear the screams of mothers who have lost their babies, remember, you chose this. You had the chance to save 11 of them by sacrificing only one. And your pride, your selfish love, condemned them all. The footsteps recede. The dragging of the tail disappears. And Björn stands in the darkness, the axe falling from his numb hands, knowing he's just made the biggest mistake of his life. The next 3 days are a waking nightmare. Björn tries to warn the other families in the village, tries to get them to keep their children inside to protect them. Some listen, others call him crazy, say he's seeing ghosts where there are none. But everyone, even the skeptics, notices that something is wrong. The animals are restless, the cows don't give milk. The horses refuse to approach the forest and the children. The children have nightmares. Every night, every child under 7 years old wakes up screaming, talking about a beautiful woman with a tail who visits them in dreams, who whispers promises of a place where it's always summer, where they never have to do chores, where they can play forever. Astrid is the worst. She stops eating. She spends hours staring out the window toward the forest, with glazed eyes and a strange smile on her lips. When Ingrid asks her what she sees, Astrid only says, "She's waiting for me, Mama, the lady of the forest. She says she has many toys for me. She says she never scold me or make me work. Can I go, Mama? Can I go play with her?" Ingrid cries while hugging her daughter, but Astrid doesn't seem to notice. She's already halfway to the forest in her mind, already half claimed. On the eve of the solstice, Björn makes a desperate decision. If the HULDRA wants a child of his lineage, then he'll give her one, but it will be himself. He plans to go to the forest and offer himself in Astrid's place. Maybe the spirit will accept an adult, if that adult is willing. Maybe he can reason with her, negotiate, find another solution. It's a stupid, suicidal idea, but it's the only one he has. That night, after Ingrid and the children are asleep, Björn dresses in his warmest clothes, takes his axe and a bag with offerings bread, beer, a silver knife, and heads toward the forest. The night is clear, the full moon illuminating the snow with ghostly silver light. His footsteps crunch in the absolute silence, and he can feel the forest's eyes on him, watching, waiting. He walks for hours, going deeper and deeper, until he reaches the same clearing where he first saw the HULDRA. The wooden staff with runes is still there, driven into the ground, but now it's surrounded by other objects. Wooden dolls, withered flowers, small bones arranged in patterns Björn doesn't recognize. "HULDRA," he shouts, his voice resonating among the trees. "I've come to make a deal. Take me instead of the children. My life for theirs." For a long moment, there's no answer. Then, from among the shadows, emerges the HULDRA, but this time she's different. Her beauty is less bright, more raw. He can see cracks in her skin, like tree bark. Her eyes are deeper, older, containing centuries of loneliness and sadness. "I don't want your life, Björn," she says, with a softer voice now, almost sad. "You're old, worn, full of doubts and regrets. You have nothing to offer me that the forest doesn't already have. Then what do you want? Why do you do this? Tell me." The HULDRA sits in the snow, her tail coiling around her, and for the first time Björn sees vulnerability in her. "Do you know how many centuries I've been alone, Björn? How many eras I've watched pass while humans build their villages, cut down my trees, forget the old ways? I was worshipped once. Children left me offerings. Hunters asked for my blessing. But now I'm just a story to scare with. A monster in the shadows. The children I take don't die. They become part of the forest. Yes, but they also become my family, my purpose. Without them I fade, the forest fades. And when the forest disappears, everything it protects, the ancient spirits, the forgotten magic, the balance between the wild and the civilized disappears with it. So you take them to save yourself," says Björn with bitterness in his voice. "I take them to save something greater than myself. Something your species is destroying with every tree you fell, with every prayer to gods who don't know this land. But you can't understand that, can you? You can only see a little Astrid in your fear of losing her. She's my daughter and the forest is my child. And it's dying, Björn, one child at a time. I keep it alive. one sacrifice every 3 generations, and in return your people have hunting, have wood, have protection from storms that could destroy everything. Is it really so unfair? Bjorn has no answer, because in his heart, he knows she's right. His great-grandfather's pact saved his village, and continues to save it. But the price is one he can't pay. Is there any other way? He asks finally, his voice broken. The Huldra looks at him for a long moment. Then, slowly she nods. There is a way, but it's harder than simply giving me a child. Tell me, I'll do anything. You must come to the forest on the night of the solstice, the longest night of the year, and walk to the heart of the forest, where the oldest tree grows. There, you must plant a new seed with your own hands and water it with your own blood. If the seed sprouts before dawn, if new life emerges from the frozen ground in the middle of winter, then the pact will be renewed without the need for the child. The forest will accept your blood and your faith instead of Astrid's innocence. That's all. Plant a seed. In the frozen ground, on the darkest night of the year, with your own blood and no guarantee of success. Yes, Bjorn, that's all. Her smile is sad, almost compassionate. Most men don't have the faith necessary to make a seed grow in winter. But maybe you're different. Maybe your love for your daughter is enough. Bjorn nods, determination hardening his face. I'll do it. Where is the ancient tree? The Huldra stands and points north, where the forest becomes denser, darker. Walk for 2 days. You'll pass 3 frozen streams. You'll see stones marked with ancient runes. And when you feel that the air itself is heavier, that each breath is more difficult, you'll know you're close. But, be careful, Bjorn. The heart of the forest is not kind to intruders. There are things there that even I fear. Things older than me. More savage. If they're going to stop you, they will. They won't stop me, says Bjorn. And though he's afraid, though every fiber of his being tells him to flee, he knows this is his only chance. Bjorn returns to Skjørgard at dawn and tells Ingrid what he must do. She wants to go with him, but someone must stay to protect the children, so she packs provisions for him. Dried food, water, blankets, and she gives him something else. A small silver pendant in the shape of a hammer. Thor's symbol, that belonged to her father. So the old gods will protect you where the new ones cannot, she says, tears in her eyes. Bjorn kisses his children, hugging them as if it were the last time, because he knows it might be. Magnus, brave and confused, asks why Daddy looks so sad. Astrid, still in her trance, barely seems to notice. And then Bjorn departs north, toward the heart of the forest, toward an impossible task that is his only hope. The first days of the journey are brutal. The cold is penetrating, sinking to the bones despite his layers of clothing. He crosses the first frozen stream, then the second, then the third. He sees the runic stones the Huldra mentioned, ancient monoliths covered with moss and lichen with symbols that seem to move in the corner of his vision. And as he walks he feels the forest becoming stranger. The trees here are larger, more twisted, with branches that intertwine like skeletal fingers. The snow has a gray tint, almost ash, and there are sounds, whispers that aren't the wind, footsteps that leave no tracks, laughter that seems to come from everywhere and nowhere. On the second night, while camping under a massive pine, Bjorn sees things moving among the trees. Tall, thin figures, with arms too long and eyes that glow like embers. They don't approach, but they watch him, waiting for him to make a mistake, to fall asleep too deeply, to lower his guard. Bjorn doesn't sleep. He keeps a fire burning all night and grips Thor's pendant in his hand until the silver leaves a mark on his palm. On the third day, he feels the change. The air becomes heavier, as the Huldra said. Each breath requires effort, as if the forest itself is pressing against his lungs. And then he sees it. In the center of a vast clearing, surrounded by a perfect circle of ancient stones, stands the largest tree Bjorn has ever seen. It's an oak, but one that must be thousands of years old. Its trunk is so wide that 10 men couldn't encircle it with their arms. Its branches extend like a giant's arms, some still green despite winter, others twisted and dead, and on its bark there are marks, scars, symbols carved by hand centuries, perhaps millennia ago. Bjorn knows, without being told, that this is the place. He kneels in the snow before the tree, takes out the seed the Huldra gave him, a perfect acorn, golden as summer sun, and begins to dig. The ground is frozen, hard as stone. But Bjorn is strong and desperate. He digs with his bare hands until his fingers bleed, until the ground finally yields and he has a small but deep hole. He places the acorn in the hole. Then, he takes out his knife and, without hesitating, cuts the palm of his hand. Blood wells up, warm and red, and he lets it drip onto the seed, soaking it, mixing with the dark earth. Please, he whispers, tears mixing with blood. Please, grow, for my children, for my village, for everything I love. Please. He covers the seed with earth and waits. He waits as night falls, as the moon rises, as the cold becomes so intense his tears freeze on his cheeks. He waits as the figures in the shadows draw closer, whispering things he can't understand, promising things he fears to desire. He waits as his strength fades, as his body trembles uncontrollably, as he wonders if he'll die here, alone, in the heart of an unforgiving forest. And just when despair is about to consume him, just when he's sure he's failed, He sees something. A green sprout, delicate as a sigh, pushing through the frozen earth. Björn leans closer, not believing what he sees. The sprout grows before his eyes, unfurling like a miracle, with small, perfect leaves emerging. And as it grows, he feels something change. The weight in the air lightens. The figures in the shadows retreat, disappearing like mist under the sun. And the forest sighs, as if it had been holding its breath for centuries and could finally exhale. The Huldra's voice floats through the air, soft and filled with an emotion Björn can't identify. You've done it, Björn Halvorsen. You've planted new life in winter's death. You've renewed the pact with faith instead of sacrifice. Your children are safe. Your village is safe. And the forest, ... The forest will remember your name with honor. Björn collapses in the snow, sobbing with relief and exhaustion. He's won. He's saved Astrid. He's saved everyone. But as he lies there, as consciousness begins to fade, he hears the Huldra's last words, whispered like a promise and a warning. But remember, Björn pacts are not broken. They're only changed, and in 3 more generations your descendants will have to make this choice again. Save with blood, or with faith, and not all will have your strength. Björn wakes in his own bed in Skirgård, not knowing how he got there. Ingrid is by his side, holding his bandaged hand, with red eyes from crying but smiling. You came back, she whispers. I thought I'd lost you. The children. They're fine. Astrid woke this morning and was herself again. Magnus is outside playing in the snow. Whatever you did, Björn, it worked. Björn closes his eyes, feeling exhaustion sink into his bones. He saved his family, but the price was high, and the Huldra's warning resonates in his mind. In 3 generations, someone else of his lineage will face this choice, and maybe they won't be so lucky. Maybe they won't have the faith, or the strength, or the determination to plant life in the midst of death. But for now, his children are safe, and that's enough, right? From what city are you watching this story that has made you question the price of salvation and the weight of impossible decisions? Leave it in the comments and tell me if you think Björn made the right decision, because every opinion feeds the stories of Vikingos del Horror and brings more ancestral legends to light. If this tale has gripped you, subscribe now, because what comes next will reveal the darkest secret of the pact, one that Björn never discovered, but that you're about to know. 50 years later, in the same forest in the same village, now known as Gammal Skirgård, Old Skirgård, a man named Torben Björnsson walks toward the heart of the forest with an acorn in one hand and a knife in the other. He is Björn's great-grandson, and he's heard the story all his life. His grandfather told him about the pact, about the HULDRA, about the impossible choice, and now it's his turn. Torben has a daughter, Sigrid, 6 years old, with hair like spun gold and eyes the color of the fjords in summer. She is the light of his life, and when the HULDRA came to him in dreams 5 nights ago, when she whispered that the time had come again, Torben knew what he had to do. He'll plant the seed, he'll bleed for his family, he'll renew the pact with faith, as his great-grandfather did. But what Torben doesn't know, what Björn never discovered, is that the HULDRA lied. Not about the pact, not about the way to renew it, but about what she really does with the children she takes. Because in the depths of the forest, beyond the ancient tree, there is a place that not even the lesser spirits dare to visit. A place where 13 small trees grow, each planted exactly the same distance from the center. And if someone approached close enough, if they had the courage to look closely, they would see that these aren't normal trees. They're children. Children turned into wood and bark and leaves, their faces still visible in the knots of the trunks, their mouths open in silent screams, their eyes closed in an eternal sleep that isn't peaceful but trapped. They're not dead, but they're not alive either. They're suspended, frozen in the moment the HULDRA took them, feeding the forest with their unlived lives, with their stolen futures. Because the forest doesn't need faith, it needs innocence, it needs unfulfilled potential. And the HULDRA, guardian of the forest, protector of the wild, does what she must to keep alive what she loves, no matter the cost. Every 3 generations, she offers men a choice, an option that seems merciful, that seems fair. Plant a seed, bleed for it, and save your children. But the seed only sprouts because the forest has already been fed. It has already taken its tribute not from the lineage of the man who plants, but from elsewhere, from another family, from another child whose disappearance will be attributed to wolves or to the snow or to a tragic accident. The truth is that the pact can never be broken. It can only be postponed, it can only be redistributed. And the HULDRA, ancient and alone, does what immortal creatures always do, survives, no matter the price others must pay. Torben knows nothing of this as he plants his acorn, as he bleeds into the frozen earth, as he prays with every fiber of his being. He doesn't know that in a village 3 days' journey away, a 5-year-old girl named Helga has just disappeared from her family's yard. He doesn't know that her parents are desperately searching for her, screaming her name into the night, finding nothing except a single small footprint in the snow and the mark of a dragging tail. He doesn't know that Helga now stands before the HULDRA in the heart of the forest, with glazed eyes and a smile on her lips, ready to join the other 13 children who already grow as trees, who feed the pact, who keep the forest alive with their stolen lives. And when Torben's sprout emerges from the frozen ground, When the man cries with relief and gratitude, believing he has saved his daughter with faith and sacrifice, the HULDRA smiles in the shadows, because she has won again. She has taken what she needs without anyone questioning the real cost. And somewhere in the depths of the forest, where not even moonlight can penetrate, a 14th tree begins to grow in the shape of a little girl named Helga, whose last conscious thought was wondering why the beautiful lady of the forest was hugging her so tight she could no longer breathe. But the story doesn't end with Torben, nor with Helga, not even with the HULDRA and her hungry forest, because there is something more, something that not even the HULDRA fully knows. The forest is not just a place. It's a living, conscious entity, ancient beyond human comprehension. And each child the HULDRA plants in its earth doesn't just feed the forest with their life. Slowly, with each sacrifice, with each innocent soul turned into wood and roots, the forest grows stronger, more hungry, more conscious. In the year 1712, 69 years after Torben's sacrifice, the forest has grown. It has expanded its boundaries, swallowing fields that were once cultivated, enveloping cabins that were abandoned when their inhabitants simply disappeared. The village of Gamle Skjærgård is now half the size it was in Bjørn's days. Families move south, speaking in whispers of nightmares, of voices in the trees, of children who sleepwalk toward the forest and never return. And the HULDRA, guardian of the forest, begins to realize something terrible. She no longer controls what she protects. She walks through the heart of the forest, passing the 14 child trees. Helga, now 70 years of tree age, still has the face of a 5-year-old frozen in her bark and feels something she hasn't felt in centuries. Fear. The ancient tree, the massive oak where Bjørn and Torben planted their seeds, is no longer just a tree. Its roots have extended 4 kilometers underground, connecting with every tree in the forest, creating a network of consciousness that pulses with hunger. And in the center of its trunk, carved by a hand that is neither human nor divine, appears a message in runes that the HULDRA can read but cannot fully comprehend. 14 souls are not enough. The forest demands more. The forest demands everything. The HULDRA steps back, her tail coiling defensively. She has fed the forest for centuries, believing she was saving it, preserving it against the advance of human civilization. But now she sees the truth. She hasn't been saving the forest. She has been awakening it. And now that it's awake, the forest hungers for something more than children. It wants entire villages. It wants cities. It wants the world to return to what it was before humans built their houses and forgot the old ways. Wild, green, endless. That night, everyone in Gamle Skjærgård has the same dream. They dream of roots growing under their beds, breaking through the wooden floors, wrapping around their ankles. They dream of trees that walk with trunks that open like mouths, with branches that extend like hungry arms. They dream of the forest's voice, deep and resonant like underground thunder, saying a single word over and over, mine. When dawn breaks, the village wakes in panic. Children crying, adults trembling, elders murmuring prayers to gods who long ago stopped listening. And at the edge of the village, where the forest meets the cultivated fields, the trees have advanced 20 meters during the night. Where there was once a clear path to the neighboring village, there is now a wall of pines so dense that sunlight can barely penetrate. They're being surrounded. A man named Jacobi, Bjørn's great-great-grandson, convenes a meeting in the church. He's a practical man, a blacksmith with strong hands and a clear mind, and he has no patience for old superstitions. But even he can't deny what everyone has seen. We'll cut down the trees, he says, his voice resonating in the sacred space. We'll take axes and saws and we'll clear a path. We can't let fear paralyze us. We can't fight the forest, shouts an old woman named Greta, whose daughter disappeared 30 years ago. It's older than us, more powerful than us. We must appease it, offer it what it wants. And what does it want? Jacob asks. More children, our lives. Where does it end? No one has an answer. But then, the church door opens slowly, and a figure enters that makes everyone gasp. It's the HULDRA, but not as the stories describe her. Her beauty has withered, her skin cracked like dry bark, her hair tangled with moss and lichen. Her tail drags heavily behind her, leaving a trail of earth and dead leaves. And in her eyes, once bright and blue as the fjords, there is now something that looks like desperation. Listen to me, she says, her voice hoarse, like wind through dead branches. What I've done, what I believed I was saving, has turned against me. The forest no longer obeys me. I'm no longer its guardian. I'm its prisoner, like you. The silence in the church is absolute. For centuries, continues the HULDRA, I took children to feed the forest, believing I was preserving something sacred. But each soul I planted made it stronger, hungrier, more conscious. And now it has awakened completely. It no longer wants occasional sacrifices. It wants to consume everything. And it will begin with this village, but it won't end here. It will spread throughout Norway, throughout Scandinavia, until the world is forest again. How do we stop it? Asks Jacob, though he fears the answer. The HULDRA looks at him with ancient, tired eyes. There is a way. But it requires the greatest sacrifice of all. The 14 children I've planted throughout the centuries, who feed the forest with their souls, must be freed. Their roots must be cut, their spirits released to find peace. Only then will the forest lose its consciousness, return to what it was. Wild, yes, but not malevolent. Just nature, without hunger. Where are those children? Asks Greta, tears already running down her face, because she knows her daughter is one of them. In the heart of the forest, surrounded by the ancient tree, but reaching there now is nearly impossible. The forest will protect them, it will send everything it has to stop us. Wolves that feel no pain, trees that walk, ancient spirits that have slept for millennia. It will be a massacre. Us, asks Jakob. You'll come with us. The Huldra nods slowly. It's my responsibility, my sign, and maybe, in the end, I can find redemption in helping to undo what I've done. Thus forms the strangest expedition Gamel Skjærgård has ever seen. 20 men and women armed with axes, saws, torches, and desperate faith, led by a mythical creature who has been their tormentor for generations. They go to fight a living forest, to free the souls of children long dead, to save their village or die trying. They depart at dawn the next day, walking toward the heart of the forest while the rest of the village prays. The first kilometers are deceptively quiet. The trees are still, the air is cold but not hostile. But then, as they cross the first frozen stream, something changes. The trees begin to move. It's not obvious at first, just a creak here, a falling branch there. But then, a massive pine tears itself from the earth with a sound like breaking bones, its roots becoming twisted legs, its branches extending like arms, and it walks toward them. Run, shouts the Huldra. But there's no need. The group is already fleeing while the walking tree pursues them, its steps making the earth tremble. Jakob stops, turns, and with a defiant shout, hurls his axe. The iron sinks deep into the tree's trunk, and it stops, trembling, before falling backward with a crash that echoes throughout the forest. Iron hurts it, shouts Jakob. Use the iron. But there are more trees rising now, dozens of them, an army of wood and roots walking toward the humans with murderous intent. The battle is chaotic, brutal. Men and women fight with axes and saws, cutting branches, dodging roots that stretch like serpents, screaming when trees grab them and lift them from the ground. 3 people die in the first minutes, crushed under fallen trunks. 2 more disappear into the underbrush, their screams cutting off abruptly, but they push forward, because they have no other choice. The Huldra fights beside them, using magic that makes the earth tremble and hostile trees coil upon themselves. But she's weak. The forest that once obeyed her will now reject her, draining her strength with each spell she casts. We have to reach the ancient tree, she shouts above the chaos. It's the source. If we destroy it, the rest will fall. They advance through the green hell, losing more people with each step, until finally, with only 8 survivors remaining, they burst into the clearing where the ancient tree stands. And there, surrounding it in a perfect circle, are the 14 child trees. They're small compared to the massive oak, delicate, almost beautiful, but on each trunk, visible even from a distance, there is a face, a child's face. Some with open eyes, others closed, all silent, all trapped. Greta falls to her knees when she sees one of them, recognizing the features of her daughter Ellen, still 6 years old, after 30 years of being dead but not dead. My daughter, she sobs, crawling toward the tree, touching the bark as if she could feel warmth in it. There's no time for mourning, says the Huldra harshly, though tears run down her own cracked cheeks. We must cut them down now, but the ancient tree has other plans. Its branches shake violently, and from its trunk emerges a voice that isn't human, isn't divine, is simply ancient and hungry. You will not touch my children. The ancient tree's roots explode from the ground like massive tentacles, grabbing 2 of the survivors and dragging them down before they can scream. The ground itself opens, swallowing them, then closes again as if they never existed. 6 remain now: Jakob, Greta, the Huldra, and 3 more men named Olaf, Henrik, and Magnus, a distant descendant of Björn's son. Cut down the child tree, shouts the Huldra. I'll deal with the ancient one. It's not a battle she can win, she knows it, but she can buy time. She launches herself toward the massive oak, her hands glowing with green light as she channels every ounce of power she has left. The tree roars because, yes, somehow it roars without a mouth, and strikes her with a branch as thick as a man's torso. The Huldra flies backward, hitting the ground with enough force to break bones, but she rises. I created you, she screams, black blood like sap flowing from her mouth. I fed you, and now I will destroy you. While the Huldra battles the ancient tree in a fight that makes the forest itself tremble, Jakob and the others run toward the child trees with their axes raised. The first they reach is Helga, the girl of 70 years of tree age. Jakob places his axe against the slender trunk, murmurs a prayer, and cuts. The sound that emerges isn't of wood splintering. It's a scream, a child's scream, high-pitched and full of pain but also relief. And as the tree falls, something ethereal, almost invisible, rises from it. Helga's spirit, finally free, looking at Jakob with eyes that shine with gratitude before fading into the air. It works, shouts Jakob. Keep cutting. One by one the child trees fall, Each releases a spirit that has been trapped for decades, some for more than a century, and with each spirit freed, the ancient tree weakens. Its branches wither, its roots retract, its roar becomes a pitiful moan. Greta reaches her daughter Ellen's tree, and with tears blinding her, cuts through the trunk. Ellen's spirit emerges, still 6 years old, and embraces her mother one last time before disappearing into the dawn light that is beginning to filter through the trees. When the last child tree falls, when the 14th spirit is released, the ancient tree collapses. It doesn't fall. It disintegrates. Thousands of years of life condensed and would simply come undone, turning into dust and ash that the morning wind scatters. And with its death, the forest exhales. It's not a sound. It's a feeling, as if the earth itself had been holding its breath for centuries and could finally rest. The trees stop moving. The roots retract underground. Silence returns, but it's not the unnatural silence of a hungry forest. It's the peaceful silence of nature in balance. The HULDRA lies on the ground, her body broken and bleeding. Jacob runs to her, kneeling by her side. "We did it," she whispers, a weak smile on her cracked lips. "You freed them. You freed them all." "Don't die," says Jacob, though he knows it's useless. "You can recover. You can, ... No, the HULDRA interrupts softly. "My time is over. I've lived too long, done too much harm. It's time for me to rest too." Her eyes, now returning to their original blue as life leaves her, look at Jacob with something that might be peace. "Take care of the forest. Not as I did, with pacts and sacrifices. Care for it with respect, with balance, because it's still sacred, even without me." And with those words the HULDRA closes her eyes and fades, not in death but in transformation. Her body becomes soft green moss, wildflowers that will bloom in spring, part of the forest she loved too much and too poorly. Jacob and the 3 remaining survivors return to Gamel Skiergård as heroes, but broken heroes. They've lost 12 companions, they've killed a conscious forest, they've freed 14 child souls and ended the life of a mythical creature, and they've learned a lesson they'll pass to their children and their children as children, that even acts done with good intentions, if fed with blood and fear, can create monsters. The pact is broken, truly broken this time. Not renewed, not postponed, but ended. The forest remains, but it no longer demands tribute. It no longer walks. It no longer hungers for anything except sunlight, water, and earth. And on quiet nights when the wind blows through the pines, some villagers swear they can hear voices. Voices of children laughing, playing, finally at peace. Maybe they're the freed spirits, grateful for their freedom. Or maybe it's just the wind. But Jacob, now old and scarred from battle, prefers to believe it's the former. Because after everything he's seen, after everything he's done, he needs to believe the suffering had meaning, that the children are at peace, that the forest has forgiven. And in the heart of the forest, where the ancient tree once stood, now grows a green clearing where sunlight touches the ground. Wildflowers bloom in spring, deer graze without fear, and in the exact center grows a small young oak, planted by Jacob with his own hands. It's not a pact, it's a promise that humans will remember the forest is sacred, not because it demands blood, but because it gives life. And as the forest grows and the village prospers in new peace, the story of the HULDRA becomes legend, then myth. Then a story mothers tell to keep children away from the trees in the darkness. But those who truly listen, those who walk in the forest with respect and open eyes, sometimes see things shadow-shaped like a woman among the pines, a tail that sways briefly before disappearing, blue eyes watching them from the darkness, and they wonder if the HULDRA really died, or if she simply transformed into something softer, something less hungry, something that protects the forest not with fear but with silent presence. No one knows for certain, and maybe, just maybe, that's the way it should be. Because some stories don't need definitive endings. They need questions. They need mystery. They need the next generation to walk in the forest with respect in their hearts and awareness in their actions. And so, the forest of Telemark remains. Wild, green, ancient, no longer hungry, but never forgetting. From what city are you listening to this story that has taken you from ancestral terror to the darkest redemption? Leave it in the comments and tell me if you believe forests still guard secrets like this. Because every voice that joins Vikingos del Horror brings more forgotten legends to light. If this story has gripped you until the end, subscribe now and hit the notification bell because there are more Nordic terrors waiting to be told, more ancient spirits waiting to be remembered, more dark truths about the price of survival and the weight of impossible choices that defined our ancestors. The forest waits, and the stories never die.